In today's project, we're going to show you how to print on fabric. My son requested this body pillow from Doki Literature Club. Not judging. Many people have requested Doki Literature Club body pillows, but the rumor has it they're never going to be made for sale. So what's an ultimate fan to do? Make your own, of course, or in this case, bug your dad daily until he says, fine, here's your pillow. So here we know the dimensions of the body pillow. It's going to be 21 inches by 54 inches. And we'll need to work and manipulate the image to accommodate that size. Using this image of Monika, we can see that, with her arm outstretched and her hair extended outward, that we're not going to be able to make good use of that image on that body pillow canvas. So what we want to do is try to move it and manipulate it in such a way that it makes the best use out of it. The same basic concepts here will allow you also to create custom t-shirts. I'll show you how to do this on your own, the materials you'll need, tips and tricks, and everything in between. We'll also need to clean up some spots where we made the edit up near her hair. We'll also want to flip the image horizontally, making right left and left right. And that's for the transfer of the image on the fabric. For this particular image, that flipping isn't necessarily important, but if you were to have text and you want to be able to read the text in the proper direction, you will need to flip that image. Because we're trying to print an elongated image, we'll need to split it up. To do this, add horizontal guides at 25, 50, and 75%. Use the guillotine tool to separate the images at those divisions. This will create 4 separate panels, each of those being 13 inches. Save each of those images and then import them into Microsoft Word. I like to use Word because I can preview the print. While I'm here, I'll make sure that the dimensions still match what we had in the image editor. Word will sometimes change those dimensions. Select the correct format. Here we want landscape. And also make sure you're using the right paper size. We want to use 13 by 19 for this print. Page margins are also important. You want to have some minimum margin. I use 0.2 inches as an absolute minimum. The printer can sometimes leave drops of ink on the edges of the paper. So if you have a margin, you can simply just cut them off. For the printer, I'm using an Epson WF7710. I'm also using this continuous ink supply system with sublimation ink inside of it. Links to all this equipment is going to be in the description. The good thing about the continuous ink supply system is it saves you a lot of money on ink. If you own a printer, and you probably do, you know how expensive it is to buy those ink cartridges. And it's made worse by the fact that there's a chip on each of those printer cartridges which are guesstimating how much ink is left. And usually they shortchange you, so there could be usable ink in there, but it tries to err on the side of caution, I guess. What the printer company doesn't want to do is they don't want to run out of ink, because that could actually damage the head, so they kind of force you to buy new cartridges even sooner than you might ordinarily need to. Well, the continuous ink supply system bypasses all that. It basically pulls the ink out of these reservoirs here on the side, and it sucks it through a tube which goes across the top of the printer, and it goes into these special made cartridges over here on the side. So what'll happen is your printer will arbitrarily tell you that you're out of ink. You push this little button over here and it resets the ink levels to properly reflect that there's plenty of ink available. So here all I'm doing is I'm just trimming off the edges. I want to make sure that I'm able to line up these 4 separate prints to make one continuous sheet. So after all of the images have been taped together and it forms one continuous image, what we'll then do is we'll further tape that image down onto the pillowcase itself. If this was a t-shirt, you wouldn't need to tape the image down onto the t-shirt. It's one simple press and you're done. Whereas this pillowcase is going to require multiple presses, and we don't want that image to shift from one to the other. Not all fabrics can be sublimated. Cotton, for example, can't be. However, polyester and other man-made fabrics can. While the pillowcase and t-shirt I'm using here in this video are 100% polyester, they feel soft like cotton. What I'm using here is heat-resistant tape. Again, there's a link for all this material and equipment in the description. So while we're waiting for the heat press to come up to the right temperature, let's take a look at some t-shirts. The one here was provided by my son's German language club. My son didn't like the shirt, so we designed and printed our own. That one's over here on the left. With dye sublimation, you can't feel the printed image at all because the fibers have been dyed. On many t-shirts, they merely have the image bonded to the surface of the t-shirt. When the shirt has been excessively worn or has been through multiple washes, the image will start to crack because it doesn't bend like the fabric. Here's an example of my Deadpool t-shirt, which is going through that cracking right now. Dye sublimation, as shown in the video, is immune to that problem. One downside to dye sublimation is using a darker colored shirt with a lighter colored print. For example, if you chose to print on a blue t-shirt, this yellow color would appear green. If you print on white t-shirts, you're good to go. Okay, we're ready to start heat pressing now. So lay the pillow cover down on the press machine with the transfer paper on top. Now ideally you'll lay also parchment paper over the top of this, just to prevent any errant dye from getting to unwanted locations. I've rigged up a temporary bridge to keep all the remaining sections stable while the first one is getting pressed. For the temperature, it's going to be 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to press it for 35 seconds. You don't specifically need a heat press, you can also use a clothes iron. Just make sure that the temperature setting that you're using is the right value. I believe that the cotton setting will be okay for this, but I also believe that it varies from iron to iron, so you might want to check with the manufacturer. Regardless of how you're applying the heat, make sure that it has good pressure, otherwise it won't work properly. If you're planning on printing a few items, there's companies like Zazzle which can provide printing services for you. I've used companies like that in the past and they do a good job. They also print on a variety of materials. But if you plan on doing a lot of custom printing, getting your own equipment will be a lot more cost effective for you. Also, if you're planning on making copies of copyrighted characters, those professional companies probably won't touch that job. So in our case, it's not for profit and personal use, so I really doubt they're going to come after you. Alright, so it's all done. Now we need to just add the pillow and we're good to go. Alright, so we're near the park where Alex is. We'll give him his body pillow and see if he likes it. Thanks for watching today's video. If you like this one, maybe you'll like one of my other ones. If you want to keep up with future projects, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Thanks.